Another show. I'm ready for another show. Are you ready for another show? We're live for an all-new episode of Martial Arts Movie Mondays. Welcome back. This week we're talking about a movie that's not as ingrained, if you will, in my training. There is some stuff we're going to attach to it. But if you've never seen this show before, we basically take a movie out of my small collection back here, a martial arts film. We talk about it, we break it down, we talk about some behind-the-scenes stuff, some fun things, some not-so-fun things. Hell, what we think about the movie, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Could be a new movie, could be an old movie, you never know. And then I try to connect it somewhat into some of my martial arts, own personal martial arts background. So if you've never checked the show out, that's what this is. So we won't keep you too long today. We've got a lot of stuff going on, so I apologize if we rush to it. But I try to do this show kind of quick, keep you on your toes. So if you ever watched a show before, you know that I'm an unabashed fan of not only Jean-Claude Van Damme, but also Steven Seagal. Now, I know Steven Seagal's gotten into some hot water as of late. I don't condone his behaviors, if, in fact, he did anything they said he did, because I also don't know all the details of everything, and I haven't followed any of the cases, so I'm never going to say somebody did something. I don't condone it, but I am still a fan, and I don't hide that. Now, although I'm a fan, I recognize that a lot of these guys that I'm fans of, not every movie they make is great. Some are not good at all. There's some interesting stories that I'm going to tell in relation to some of the Steven Seagal stuff, and I may repeat it a couple times as I do other Steven Seagal movies that I always just found interesting. Whether it was a news article I read, so I don't know if it's factual, so we'll say that. But we'll get to that in a minute. It doesn't even really pertain to this movie. So anyway, so today's movie, a lot of people may jump right on the Above the Law bandwagon. I do love Above the Law, don't get me wrong. That was our introduction to Steven Seagal. But I decided I want to go with one of my favorite Steven Seagal movies. There's a few of them that I really, really enjoy. I don't know why this one always connected with me a little bit more than the rest at the time. But we're going to talk about, it's the 1991 feature, Out for Justice. And I got it on this nice DVD with a crazy little fold lock pack. When they put that out, it was like, nobody knows how to open this stupid thing. Out for Justice. I always thought it was funny is if you go back and look at Seagal's catalog, a lot of his films, my jacket's falling open for some reason. Hold on, sorry about that. A lot of his catalog, his movies are all like three words, marked for death, above the law, out for justice. You know, you get into Under Siege, just like the first ones, and it was like two, but then you get into some other ones, and Code of Conduct, and I forgot what was the one about I don't know. Anyway, but they're always like, there was a series there for a while that were all three words, and then they went into some of the other ones with Executive Decision, which he has a small part in, and Exit Wounds, and Under Siege 2, which I guess now becomes 3 because it's got number 2 in it. Anyway, but today we're talking about Out for Justice, that not only stars Steven Seagal, but also William Forsythe, who I was always liking some of these old bad guy roles. I really like him in the Devil's Rejects. I think it's not American Me. Is it American Me? I think he's in American Me as well. The gang with Edward James Olmos, I like him in as well. It's also got Jerry Orbach and young Gina Gershon. So the premise of the movie is essentially another. This is around Above the Law days, right? So this is another one of those. He's the Italian cop. I don't know if he's part of like a special unit. Hold on, let's look. No, he's just a cop. He's Gino, because I know he runs around as Beret. And at the time that came out, that was back when Seagal also had a long ponytail. He was a lot thinner. He had the beret rocking. He was all in. But there's just something gritty about this movie. The fights are great in it. This is no nonsense Seagal, where he was still kind of the young pup in Hollywood, but he was calling his own shots and he was not taking any crap. And so when he came around, he would bring in the pain. And I really, really, really like this movie. One of my favorite sequences is there's a pull hall fight scene where he just fights everybody, and he uses a pull cue as like a bow staff. I don't know why I just said bow staff. That drives me crazy, and now I'm saying it because I'm talking to you people. He's uses it as a bow, as well as using some of the balls, puts them in paper. He's hitting people with them. He's throwing people. He cracks this one dude's head. He's got his head kind of dented in. Using the bar to smash people's hands and whatnot. But it's just a great action movie. It's got some great shootouts. This was back in the invincible Steven Seagal days, which, if you don't know what I'm talking about, back in the day, very rarely, it was kind of a running joke. Very rarely did Steven Seagal get hit or get beat in any film he made. So there wasn't ever a case, for the most part, where he got his butt handed to him and then had to get the redemption to get revenge. They usually just got away. And even though he still beat the crap out of them. And it was something different when Above the Law came out and these movies came out, Out for Justice and Marked for Death, and some of those came out. I think it was just like I saw them all in the theater, and I think there was something about the fact that the martial arts I did, which was predominantly Taekwondo, was all about kicking and punching, right? Aikido was all about, the throwing and using other people's momentum to continue their momentum to somewhere else, and breaking arms and locks and things like this, which I think is the reason that years later I decided to study jiu-jitsu, only because there was nowhere nearby that did Aikido at the time. I did have the luxury of, and I think it fed my love of Steven Seagal's fighting style of Aikido. I got to train with Bill Sosa, late Grandmaster Bill Sosa, who was an Aikido guy and very well known here where I'm at. And he was friends with my Taekwondo instructor, the late great Grandmaster Steve DeLuna. All of them are passed away now. And he would come and do seminars at our Taekwondo class. And, I was this teenage kickboxer at the time, and I was fighting, and I was doing different things, and I was racking up tournaments, and I was getting in the ring, and I was kicking people's butts, and thought I was somebody, and had the kind of I wasn't a jerk, I wasn't a bully, but I kind of had that swagger about me. So when somebody else come in class, I'm like, let's do this. And I remember them doing a seminar. I believe it was Bill Sosa's wife, just a little small Asian woman. I'm assuming she was a Japanese woman. Little small tiny thing. She couldn't have weighed more than like 90 pounds tops. And I remember her, she was giving instruction, and I loved working out with them. I had a blast with them. It wasn't like I was confrontational, but I also still had that little bit of teenage chip on my shoulder. And so I remember we were doing a drill that involved catching a kick and flipping the person. And I remember watching her do it. It looked awesome. She threw the other Aikido guy. And I always found it amazing watching and then throw somebody who then would hit the ground, roll, and stand right up, and hit the ground and roll and stand right up. And some people look at it and they're like, well, that just shows that it's all choreographed. It's not. What that is that's, I learned years later, that's really to protect the person getting thrown. Because when we do seminars now, like now I can throw myself, I can roll, I can do all this stuff from years of focusing on that and doing some stunt work. And, if you know how to fall and roll and doing things, you're learning to defend yourself hitting the ground, as well as defending yourself so they can throw you full force. And when I teach them now, a lot of times I'll do two, and sometimes I get other people to do it nowadays because I'm getting older. But I remember coming up, my dad, if he was teaching a kid, my dad actually studied Aikido for a little while. I don't think he got a whole lot of rank in it. He's a black belt in Taekwondo as well, but he studied for a couple of years with Grandmaster Sosa, and he would come home and demonstrate stuff. So when he would show the Taekwondo class some of the stuff he learned, he would want to make sure everybody understood that the way you're going to fall right now is to protect yourself in class. The way you're going to fall in real life, not so much. And so I would have to demonstrate the rolling fall, the rolling stand up, protected fall, the break fall, or whichever one we were doing. But then I also have to demonstrate how you would fall for real. So my dad would throw me full force. I would roll, break fall, stand up, whatever that specific throw entailed. And then we would do this, just this pull down throw. It was a very simple, basic throw. But it would involve basically when you pull somebody, go right into a roll, they stand up, and you do it again. But if you really threw somebody, it involves them hitting the floor face first and sliding. So on the mats, I started doing that so my dad could show the people he was teaching what would happen for real, so he'd make better understanding. So he would throw me full force, and I'd hit the ground, slide across the ground on my face on the mats. It became where I could almost, it was kind of a precursor of me learning to do a lot of the break falls and stuff that I ended up having a little small career as a stunt person, fight choreography, and some independent stuff for a while because of that. And then it also took my fear away of getting up there and just throwing myself up in the air or twisting or chunking, whatever, to try to figure and learn things out. So I got rid of the fear of falling down, because I don't care if I fall down. But also now I don't fall down. If I do, I tend to either I'm able to catch myself, or if something happens, I break fall, and it's kind of natural now. I don't have to warm up to it. I can just throw in the break fall and stand up. Like yesterday in my Muay Thai class, yes, at Muay Thai, I decided to make them do a rolls, and they were doing drills where they were kicking and punching, and then I would have roll, so they'd have to roll, stand up, and keep moving. It was all about like an agility thing, not so much rolls for Muay Thai. And I was able to just say, okay, what you're gonna do is this: roll, stand up, and just keep talking, because now I have it. So anyway, that's kind of where a lot of these movies came from, the Steven Seagal world. Out for Justice, for some reason, always just stuck with me. There's great fighting. It's that New York City grimy cop thriller on top of being a martial arts flick. You got Seagal, who was that no-nonsense tough guy cop you believe. You've got Gina Carano. Gina Carano is always on my brain. We're going to talk about her in a movie soon. But Gina Gershon, who's like the sexy woman in the film. You got William Forsythe, who's kind of the mob guy, who's kind of a jerk. You've got the cliched stories, parts of the stories where, another cop is murdered and they're investigating. So a lot of the story is pretty much everything you would have saw in the 80s and 90s in an action flick or a thriller. This one, you just inject some Aikido and Steven Seagal. And the other thing I loved about this movie is this movie feels like, I feel like there's just, excuse me, sorry about that. That was inappropriate and unprofessional, but don't care. This movie, well, it's really with any Steven Seagal movie back then, but this one to me, for some reason, felt a little more legitimate. Like Above the Law is a great movie. This one felt like he had found his stride a little bit. And this was almost like he did Above the Law again. It's a different story completely, but it felt like this was kind of what Above the Law should have been. Just in different ways. I don't know if that even makes any sense. That was just my own mindset. I love both of the movies, and I'll talk about Above the Law in here too sometime. But there's just so much that I can do at one time, right? But it just felt like a real cop flick. It felt like old school, just different old school things that you'd see. Just they could have taken the martial arts out of this completely and been the exact same movie of just some fist fights and stuff. But it also feels like when he would hit somebody, it really it really feels like he's really destroying somebody. It felt like he's really smashed people, because he is, and I think the stunt people that he worked with are always so great. But what's funny is that there were some different. You always read like notes and stories and things about different movies that I think this was like the first, I want to say they said this was like the first movie he did in like 10 years. In his first 10 years, like maybe between 88, 99, 98, whatever. I think it was saying that this was like one of the only movies that didn't contain an explosion of some sort or something like that. It's just a silly fact. I believe the bar brawl, the pool hall bar, whatever thing I talked about a little bit earlier, I believe Seagal has stated that that's one of his favorite ones he's ever done. I agree. It's a great sequence. There was a lot of craziness too, because there's an old story about Gene LaBelle, who's this iconic stunt coordinator. I believe he's a judo guy. He's very well known in the martial arts community, and apparently there was some there was some bad blood or some trash talk between the two, and there's a story that he supposedly choked out Seagal on set. I don't know if it's really true or not, but it's just another one of those things that makes this movie just kind of all the more iconic because of different things. I don't think it got good reviews when it came out, but I think it was still like in the top 5 box offices at the time. This was during the time when Seagal was a big box office draw. If a movie he made came out, it was going to be big, and it was, and you know that pretty much kept going on for a while. I think the other person I'm just now thinking about it, but I think isn't Juliana Margulies in this movie too? I thought she was. Hold on. I thought popped in Gina Gershon, but I didn't mention Juliana Margulies. But I think she's in this movie too. If you remember Juliana Margulies, I just like saying Juliana Margulies. Hold on, let's look. Pretty positive she was in this movie. Yep, Juliana Margulies is in this movie too. So if you remember her, then cool. If you don't remember her, then I'll tell you. But moving on, the director, John Flynn, who I believe has since passed away, he's the same guy that did Lock Up with Stallone. So he had some, he did stuff all the way back in like the 60s and 70s. So he had an eye for action and the way to handle the film. And I think he did a great job with this one. This one stuck with me. I've watched this numerous times. If I have to watch a Seagal movie or somebody ever asks me what Seagal movie should I watch, Out for Justice is the one I go with. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. You can find this cool version with this dumb case. I hated these versions of the case when these DVDs came out because they never sat in the same on the shelf as the regular DVDs. But I've had this movie on VHS, DVD, and I'm sure eventually I'll have it on Blu-ray and possibly 4K. But don't worry, I don't keep them all. I'm not that crazy. I cycle them out. But Out for Justice is my pick for today. If you haven't seen it, if you like Seagal or you don't like Seagal, this is old school Seagal. So go check this one out. It's, even if nothing else, it's got some great fight scenes. It's just a good old cop thriller. But that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget, join us tomorrow for another episode of TV Tuesdays, where me and the missus will talk about new shows, old shows, and everything in between. And then we'll be back here on this Sunday for an all-new episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live, where I think this week we're talking about Frozen 2, 21 Bridges, and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and whatever else craziness that comes up. It's also our pre-Thanksgiving show, so who knows? We may talk about what movies we're thankful that exist. I don't know. And then you'll circle back, and we'll be back here for another episode of Movie Mondays, Martial Art Movie Mondays next week, and who knows what we'll be talking about. You never know. I don't even know right now. I figure them up usually within the 2 days before because I don't want to sit with it a lot. I rewatch it. I get it fresh in my brain. We dive back into it. Have a good old time. And like I said, sometimes they have personal connection with me. Sometimes they don't. Out for Justice and Steven Seagal himself is one of the reasons I ended up taking jiu-jitsu years later after my experience and got a black belt in jiu-jitsu because I loved all the way that stuff moved. And when he started throwing kicks, I started seeing how it merged very well with Taekwondo as well. So, but that's going to be it for me. Please, please, please hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the little orb up top if it shows up, and the trailer over here. If I can find the Out for Justice trailer, I'll throw it up there as well. But I always appreciate you. Please share this out. Tell your friends. Subscribe to our channel because we get more prizes and more things to give you, more content we have. And then once again, as always, be nice to one another. Keep your hands up, and thank you for watching.